We often hear that nothing in this world is free. Every favor has a price tag and every debt must eventually be settled. But some debts are so heavy they can crush a man's spirit. In a quiet room of a modern hospital, the only sound was the steady, rhythmic beep of a heart monitor and the soft patter of rain against the window pane. Mr. Harrison, an elderly man with tired eyes and silver hair, stared at a piece of paper in his trembling hand. It was a medical invoice. The amount at the bottom read $80,000. He sighed deeply, a sound of pure exhaustion, and slowly closed his eyes. To the world he was just another patient in room 402, a man with no family to visit him, no insurance to protect him, and a heart that was slowly giving up. He felt the suffocating weight of bankruptcy. He knew he couldn't pay this debt, but as the darkness of sleep pulled him in, his mind escaped the sterile hospital walls. He traveled back, 20 years into the past. The scene shifts to a small, quiet countryside town. It was the heart of autumn, and the golden leaves were dancing in the chilling wind. Mr. Harrison was much younger then, a humble schoolteacher with a heart full of stories and a soul full of kindness. One evening, while walking home, he noticed a young boy named Leo shivering outside a grocery store. The boy's clothes were tattered, and his eyes were hollow with hunger. Most people walked past the child, too busy with their own lives to notice a soul in need. But Mr. Harrison saw a flickering light in the boy's eyes that no one else did. "Come inside, son," he said gently, his voice like a warm blanket. The cold is no friend to an empty stomach. Inside his cozy cottage, by the warmth of a crackling fireplace, Mr. Harrison gave Leo a bowl of hot vegetable soup. But he gave him something even more precious. He handed him an old leather-bound English book. Leo looked at the steam rising from the soup, and then at the book. His voice was a mere whisper, cracked with emotion. "I can't pay you back, sir. I am destitute. I have nothing." Mr. Harrison placed a firm, fatherly hand on the boy's shoulder and smiled. "You don't pay kindness back, Leo. You pay it forward. Knowledge is the only gift that multiplies when you give it away. Just promise me one thing. You will never stop moving toward the light." For the next few years, that cottage became Leo's sanctuary. Under the patient guidance of his teacher, the homeless boy began to transform. He learned about the world, about science, and the power of resilience. He was no longer a boy with no future. He was a student with a dream. Years passed, and the bond between the teacher and the student grew stronger. Leo was no longer the frightened boy from the streets. He was now a young man standing at the pinnacle of his dreams. He had received an acceptance letter from a prestigious medical college. It was the chance of a lifetime, a chance to change his destiny. But dreams, as they often do, came with a heavy price. The tuition fees were mountain high, and for a boy who had nothing, it might as well have been 1,000,000 miles away. Leo sat in Mr. Harrison's small library, his head in his hands. He felt he had finally reached a wall he couldn't climb. Mr. Harrison watched him from the doorway. He knew that Leo's talent was a rare flame that shouldn't be extinguished by poverty. That night Mr. Harrison looked at his most prized possession, an ancestral gold watch that had been passed down through generations of his family. It was his only remaining link to his own past. Without a second thought, he sold the watch and his entire collection of rare books. He didn't tell Leo. He simply handed him an envelope with the required amount. When Leo asked where the money came from, Mr. Harrison simply smiled and handed him a small note. It read, "Do not worry about the cost of the journey. Just focus on the destination. Go, Leo. Go and heal the world."
Time is a river that flows relentlessly. Leo moved to the big city to pursue his studies. In the beginning, there were letters, full of gratitude and updates. But as the years turned into a decade, the letters became infrequent, and then they stopped altogether. The bustling life of a doctor had swallowed the boy from the countryside. Mr. Harrison grew old. His hair turned as white as the winter snow, and his once strong voice became a fragile whisper. His house, once filled with the warmth of Leo's questions, was now a hall of solitude. He often struggled to make ends meet, living on a tiny pension that barely covered his food. One cold evening, the silence was broken by a sudden, sharp pain. Mr. Harrison clutched his chest and fell to the floor. It was a severe heart attack. He was rushed to the city's most advanced hospital. As he lay on the white bed, surrounded by the cold, clinical smell of medicine, the doctors delivered the grim news. He needed an urgent, complex surgery. But there was a problem. Mr. Harrison had no insurance and no savings. He looked at the doctors with eyes full of fear, not of death, but of the shame of being unable to pay for his own life. He was a man who had given everything away, and now he had nothing left to buy a second chance. The surgery was a success, but for Mr. Harrison the recovery was filled with a different kind of pain, the anxiety of the unknown. A few days later, as he prepared to be discharged, a nurse entered his room. She held a small white envelope in her hand. Mr. Harrison's breath hitched. He took the envelope with trembling fingers, certain that inside lay the document that would seal his financial ruin. He slowly tore it open, bracing himself for the worst. But his eyes didn't find a list of expensive charges. Instead, right across the center of the bill, there was a bold red stamp that read, "Paid in full." Confused and breathless, he turned the paper over. On the back, a handwritten note brought tears to his eyes. "Dear Mr. Harrison, this bill was settled 20 years ago. It wasn't paid with silver or gold, but with a bowl of warm soup, a glass of water, and the life-changing wisdom you gave to a homeless boy who had lost his way. You once told me to heal the world. Today I am just a student following his teacher's light. With eternal gratitude, Dr. Leo." The door pushed open softly. There stood a man in a surgeon's gown. It was Leo. He was no longer the shivering child, but his eyes still held the same spark of love. Without a word, the two men embraced, a silent bond that time could never break. In a world that often calculates worth by the numbers in a bank account, this story reminds us of a deeper truth. Kindness is the only currency that never devalues. It is a seed planted in the heart of another, waiting for the right season to return to you as a forest of hope. If this story moved you, please share it with a teacher who changed your life. Subscribe to English Tide for more stories that inspire. Remember, keep learning and always pay it forward.